Right, boys and girls, here's just a short, ridiculous reminiscence that everybody has these type of things happen in their life, I think. Maybe not as bizarre as I crafted them, but images that you'll never forget that happened with your friend and what have you, and it left a mark on you. This one is called Ping, no, Pong, Chipmunk, and the Moped. Pong, Chipmunk, and the Moped. The story goes like this. When I was 11, I was dying to get a motorcycle. I could get one and I could drive it illegally in the quarry or someplace else, or I'd be stuck driving it around my property until I turned 17. I couldn't wait 7 years to get on a motorcycle. I was well too crazy. So I found myself a beautiful local used place, and they had an old Allstate Moped 50. And it was like made by Sears in a dealership used. And for like 130 or $40 that I saved up for, I got this thing. I nagged my parents into Jello, and they said, "All right, you can get it, but don't take it on the highway and be careful." Yeah, okay, that's how that goes. And so I got it home. I tried, of course, sneaking it across the street once to get to the open roads on the other side, and I rode it across our front street. Immediately, the cops nabbed me and said that this is your first and last warning. Don't take it on the road. So I couldn't. No more road. Parents didn't get on me. I was safe. So that was the summer that I drove my father in particular, as well as my mother, but my father in particular, I drove him wild because we only lived on a corner lot in the suburbs. It was a pretty large lot. It had access to the woods and the gladiator pit. We had a little narrow softball field where we could break neighbors' windows on the other side. And it was a place to ride the bike, but you'd have to go around the house on a half-acre lot a lot of times. And I loved riding it. So I would go, the lot was shaped like an L, and I'd go to the deep end of center field on the softball field, come down the side of the house at high speed, cut across the front, go right past the window where my father's laying exhausted from working, and he's trying to sleep on the couch. And then I'd go up to the far end. So picture the Doppler effect on my poor father. He'd be laying there sleeping, and you'd hear ring, ding, 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 in the distance, ring, ding, 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 and then it gets closer, and right past his head, it'd go ring, 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 and then back around. Okay, that drove him nuts. I'm surprised he didn't forbid me right there, but he knew how much I liked it. Well, now comes the part of it where the moped meets the chipmunk. I am riding around the yard one day, and I'm going through the front yard, and I'm doing, the thing could do 34 miles an hour on the straightaway, but it could still do 20 miles an hour. It was a quantum leap over pedaling. I loved this thing. And it had like bicycle brakes to you didn't pedal, but those were your brakes. So as I'm going around, I had one of my first encounters with mortality. I saw something dash in the front of my eye across my path. And again, I'm 11 on this thing. And I run over what I think was a little rodent or a chipmunk or something. And I thought it was a squirrel. So I was horrified to the pit of my stomach. I said, I think I killed something with my motorcycle. So I drove up the other end, and believe it or not, I was a sensitive child. There was no, I may have been crazy, raised in a wild environment, but I had feelings, and I said, I've done something that's terrible. I've killed something. So I come back and I look at where the scene of the crime was. And sure enough, I kept telling myself, this chipmunk got away. He just darted away at the last minute. I only glimpsed him. No, he was laying there, and he was like twitching. He was ready for the coup de grace. He was badly hurt. So I just like wanted to start throwing up just about. I drove to the back and I had tears in the corner of my eye. What have I done? I've murdered this thing. I felt terrible. I mean, it was, you get feelings. And it was an accident. So down the hill, as I'm sitting there, comes my friend Tommy Adams. Oops, Tommy. And he was the guy with the firecracker wall fight where he had the 3 explosions around his head. So he comes around and he says, John, why are you upset? What happened? I said, oh, you don't know. I need your help. I think I've killed a suffering little chipmunk in the front yard, and I got to put him in the woods. I can't look at him, and he's right in my front yard. Can you help me? So he goes, yeah, I'll come around. So he comes around the front, and I go with the motorcycle in the back a little bit with him, or in the front. And then I accompany him toward the woods. I said, just put him in the woods, like give him a gentle burial anywhere in the woods. So the end of this story is a remarkable turn of indifference and youthful ridiculousness. He just takes the still alive chipmunk that's almost dead. He throws it up in the air and he pongs it right into the woods like a 50-foot shot, and the thing's gone. And I was like, oh God, how could you? He said, well, you said get rid of it. So I learned a lesson in mortality that day. Don't try this at home, kids. It's not worth it. It's better to have a prayerful spirit and love nature and people. It took me years to understand that, but this was just a psycho incident. And let me pause for 1 second while I get to part 2. Alrighty, boys and girls, I just came up with the other related mortality story that rocked my inner being soon after the ping pong episode with the cadaver of the chipmunk. I can't say which one came first. I think this story came before the secondary run of the chipmunk running it over. But remember the pool I was telling you about? There was this backyard pool that we ultimately burst in a 10,000-gallon explosion. Well, before it broke, every year it would come out and we'd lay it on the prepared area of soil with this heavy liner. So I had to straighten the liner out for my father or my brother later to put the pool up right. I was just the grounds crew getting the pieces out. And as I'm doing this, I get startled by what looks like a mouse or a rat. It turned out it was a little black mole, and they can hardly see. They have beadier eyes than I have. And it came out like, looking at me. And I was startled and horrified that I had to work around this unrestrained wild creature that probably has teeth and's going to bite me. So again, watching too many Westerns when they encounter a rattlesnake or something, I go back in the house and go to that secret toy chest with that 12-shot BB gun pistol that I told you about in a previous episode. So I'm standing there by myself, and I look down at this little thing looking up at me like this, like I can't continue my work. So foolishly, as a little knucklehead, I take my pistol and start fanning it at the creature. And unfortunately, it didn't take much to kill a mole that's this big. So it stopped moving, a little blood came out of it, and I'm there like, oh, that was murder 1. And the only other murder was the manslaughter on the chipmunk that happened later. Then I killed nothing, nothing ever again. But I learned lessons learned in childhood, right? And so as I did this, I retired to the other side of the thing with my smoking, figuratively, BB gun, and I'm there. You killed it. You killed it. What a horror. And then I was treated to a horrible National Geographic documentary on the circle of life and death on planet Earth. As I did this, as I watched this, and I'm revulsed by what I did, a big ass blue jay from the neighbor's yard big ass, like it looked like a vulture, but you know how big those are. They're dangerous. They'll peck the hell out of your head if you got close. This thing swoops down, picks up the little 3/4 dead thing, or if it's not already dead, and flies it about 50 feet over to the neighbor's house and starts eating it in front of me. Now, at this point, I'm like, I'm just about ready to blow chunks. I'm ready to lose it. And that left a real mark. I don't want to hurt anything anymore. I don't pull the wings off flies. I do have the capacity to understand ultra violence. I do understand that from childhood, but it's been a long process to get everything to the point where I have no enemies. I have no hate that I know of. And that's just another story on the speed bump of life. So hopefully we'll get a different topic now. And take of it what you will.